Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mirror's Edge. We're at the docks at 5 p.m. exactly. Wow, Faith is very punctual.
Well, not usually, because it's like 11:07 or 3:58 or whatever. So feels like
Oof.
most of the time she doesn't give a crap.
I can tell this is PlayStation 3 all of a sudden because I can see the texture sort of dynamically smoothing its way in as you get closer to it.
Yes, the Mass Effect effect.
Specifically on that pile of dirt that you have to jump on. It's got a really detailed texture, so as you get closer to it, you can see the seam where the where the texture is generating its higher res version as you get closer.
The tell for me isn't so much the textures, although it does help. It's the geometry, and this is something where the game's art style does a good job masking it, but everything's very blocky. It's made out of very simple geometry. And I mean, granted, yes, this is still more complex than what you would see in a game 5 years prior on the PS2 or Xbox or whatever. But that's more in terms of like the openness while keeping relatively the same amount of detail. A lot of games from the PS2 and Xbox era are much more closed. They don't have
Yeah.
the big, like if you look to the right here, like there's like the big open space where you see lots of the skyscrapers that are very clearly modeled and not just a background or whatnot.
Yeah, and then when they got more wide open, they had to do it with simpler individual graphics assets like Morrowind did.
Yeah, and that's why you can tell that like a lot of the stuff on this rooftop is very simplistic. Like
Yeah.
the AC units and whatever is it's mostly very boxy. Um,
But at least the faces aren't made of potatoes.
you know what? That is true. Yes, you don't have any Max Payne faces going around. Although people that one I guess gets a pass due to the absurdity level of it. But
Well, Max Payne faces where it was a different matter. They took photographs of people, like the guy who the guy whose face Max Payne used in the first game. The face texture is a photo that they also use in the comic book cutscenes. It's specifically that one developer making that one face, and you see it in at least one panel. But
yeah,
they shamelessly reused it for his face texture, and it's so incongruous with the character in the game. Like, why is he smirking like a goddamn idiot, but whenever he narrates something or opens his goddamn mouth, he's the most depressed guy this side of um anywhere.
I mean, granted, Max Payne also came out 2001. There was a Max Payne 3? 2013. What?
Oh, yes, there
Uh,
was a Max Payne 3. That was the one where he was in a foreign country, I think South America maybe. He's kind of shaved bald because that was the thing to do at the time.
yeah, everybody wanted the Vin Diesel haircut. Apparently, it was pretty good. It got good reviews.
It wasn't so much everybody wanted the Vin Diesel haircut as it was just easier to do graphically. Um,
Hey, man, if we saw a Vin Diesel or a Rock or Dwayne the Rock Johnson haircut these days, they would put so much budgeting into making sure that there were dynamic beads of sweat along the bald head, and that they realistically rolled down and you could see every pore on the back of that head.
we've reached the point where at least the cutscene models will try to get the little tiny hairs that everyone has on their skin, but video game characters don't because they're basically invisible.
If they had enough money and they really wanted to show off, they'd have some sort of Fable ass hair growth system where eventually they'd sprout and then you'd get to a
Fable?
buzz cut at some point.
Fable.
Didn't Fable not with hair, but didn't Fable do that with trees and shit where you plant a tree and the tree will grow in real time?
That was something that Peter Molyneux talked about wanting to do, but never made it into the games.
Oh right, this is you know, God forbid I believe something Peter Molyneux said he wanted to do.
Now, the thing that Fable characters did that was reactive was that they would gain weight or height or stuff based on what foods you were eating or what points you were assigning to their attributes or how much strength or... For some reason, skill made you taller, and I'm not sure why.
You know, I don't need my escapist fantasy to remind me that I eat shit and gain weight because I eat shit.
It was actually one of the cooler things because, like, you wouldn't just gain weight by eating too much. You would gain... you would become less pure if you ate junkier food, but if you ate healthier food like vegetables, you would gain purity. So your character's appearance would change based on the combination of their morality, their weight, and the amount of purity slash impurity they had.
Oh, and
based
now
on their
Peter Molyneux
eating
is
habits.
saying I'm an asshole because I eat
No,
Cheetos and drink Mountain
But
Dew.
here's the cool thing. Not only would your appearance change, but different mixtures of good and bad and pure and impure would get you different appearances based on the combination and different titles for your character. So there were actually, like, completely different, like, you could be impure as hell, but also a frickin' saint. And that would get you a different title than if you were pure and good at the same time.
So this is like Fat Ass the Godly, who's going around curing the blind and feeding the homeless, and then he's just trailing around with, like, a big bag of M&Ms. It's just like, wah, wah, wah. You know what? We need more people like that in this world. I would pray to Saint Fat Ass the Holy.
I mean, something like that. But, like, Fable is a very tongue-in-cheek kind of humorous series at its core. So this kind of stuff is just all in good fun. Like, nobody fucking expects you to take the morality system in the Fable games seriously.
Hold on. Now I got it. Now I gotta know if Peter Molyneux has done anything since the Fable.
There
series
was
ended.
some crowdfunding thing that left like a permanent black mark on his reputation.
Yeah. There was the Trail Frontier Challenge is the last thing he's credited on as a designer, and then there's a game called Moat. Which is supposed to was announced 2023, supposedly, and we really haven't heard much about him since.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Despite years of quota development and successful Kickstarter financing for Godus, the game never left Steam Early Access. As of December 2023, both Godus and Godus Wars were removed from the Steam stores. Okay. Alright, yeah. That... I can understand what you mean by that, then. Okay.
Well, I haven't followed Peter Molyneux closely. I only heard about that one in passing.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, Fable is a fun enough series, but it is in general not really my cup of tea because I'm not really into games that lean into comedy as much as Fable often does. Like, I enjoy the Fable games, but the tone and style isn't quite my sort of thing.
That makes sense. You know, everybody has different things.
Yeah.
It's very strange in that there are very few, like, pure comedy games, now that I'm thinking about it. There's definitely games with comedic writing. Like, I'm thinking of, like, I enjoy Ace Attorney. Ace Attorney has some comedic wriing, but overall, it's not really a comedy game.
Well, I mean, even we had to do this part like twice because my Audacity crashed and I forgot that it had happened.
Listen, Ryan's just doing the speedrun tech work for them. You know, you gotta find the things you can stand on to clip through the wall to save 30 seconds of...
Yeah, the speedrunner would probably be done with the level by now.
I mean, probably, yeah, but, you know.
I'm more surprised that little light on the wall had a collision box attached to it at all. Because that seems like the kind of thing that you would have to do deliberately.
It depends on how the game's made. I have no idea, like, what game development looked like in 2008.
Well, the thing is, they might have assigned a hitbox to that object so that every time they spawned it in, it has a hitbox. So it wasn't necessarily a deliberate level design choice to allow people to stand on it here. But they would have had to decide at some point that the light that sticks out of the wall is something with a collision box. They probably did that more in service to the fact that you might jump past a light box and not be accurate enough in your jump and clip the light box and have the momentum of your jump screwed up. But in that one case, you landed on it from on top, so you could stand on it. Probably not intentional, but cool.
So we found out what the big Project Icarus was all about. The police are learning the hardcore parkour.
No! They'll have way cooler YouTube videos than us. They'll commercialize the parkour industry, and then it'll be lame.
They're being trained to come after us. Oh no. Well,
It's the police are doing their jobs. This is the most unrealistic video game I've ever seen in my life.
now the idea that the police are doing their jobs is a bit misleading here, because in this case, their job is what a lot of anti-cop people in the real world would say the police's real job is, which is protecting the status quo.
Yeah, I know, but that. Oh yeah, you know what? That is a good point.
Yeah.
It's more being competent is the unusual thing for video games.
Well, I mean, being competent at, the protect and serve part of police work and being militarized are two different aspects, They can be absolutely incompetent at one and absolutely stellar at the other. And there's an argument to be made that one is definitely more important for the stated mission of the cops, and the other would be more important if, say, you bought into certain broad, sweeping generalizations about what the cops are about. Which I don't on a macro myself, just to clarify that.
Breaking news. Oh, Ryan, we don't get to read the breaking news. How am I going to know what my lotto numbers are? Oh, okay. Thank you, Ryan.
Well, just pause your video and then read it.
Why are you checking the news for your lotto numbers? We have the internet now.
This is 2008. Like, you
Still
might
have
not
the
have a
internet.
broadband by this point. It's possible. Oh, why do we need a new computer? We have a computer. Mom, our computer runs on Windows 95 and takes an hour to load Internet Explorer. Have you ever thought about that? Maybe.
Not even Windows 98. Windows
No,
95.
Yeah.
It came with the Friends VHS.
I've had experience with both, and I can definitely say Windows 98 was a huge improvement.
Yeah. There's also, it's, the same thing like, oh, why do you need a Game Boy, honey? You already have a Game Boy. I can't play Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire on my Game Boy. Mom, you don't understand.
Everything is a Nintendo.
Everything is a Nintendo. Ryan, how do you like playing Spyro on your Nintendo?
I mean, I can now, but
I forgot that game consoles were so trivialized at one point that people would honestly say just Sega or Nintendo in the same way that people say Coke and Pepsi to just refer to any cola.
Yeah. And every Pokemon's a Pikachu. To this day, my dad will still say that Jigglypuff evolves into Iggly stuff just to dick with me, even though at this point people should know what the hell Jigglypuff is. But, if this is going off of 7-year-old Ted who talked about Pokemon, and they would be like, oh yeah, that's nice, honey.
When I was a kid, my dad said, that's Pikachu. That's the one that eats everything, right? And I'm like, no. No, it's the electric mouse.
It is shocking to me how good the animation is in the in the actual game, and how bad the animation is in these cutscenes.
Well, it's less that the animation... Well, this is a loading screen, for one thing. But the animation and the cutscene sort of inconsistently jumps back and forth between really good and really bad based on what's happening. Like,
It looks like a really weird rotoscope. Game paused the boat. Okay.
so, like... If there's like an action scene going on in one of those animated cutscenes, the animation will be very smooth. They clearly mocapped that shit. But some of the basic animations in between are very stiff. Like they were hand animated.
Yeah, like the arms particularly.
Yeah.
Were like, what the hell were you doing?
And you know, I do not envy the people who have to hand animate stuff because that sounds like a very tedious process.
This is the sort of thing where physics engines definitely make things easier. One thing I was reading about the development for Breath of the Wild was that, like, and this is a minor thing, but for Epona, when you were riding a horse in all the previous games, they animated the tail kind of like bouncing along as you rode it. So
Yeah.
that's just part of the scripted animation versus in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, by extension, there's some sort of physics engine that makes it bounce.
Yeah, they have hair physics for stuff like the horse's tail, Link's hair, the hair of any character with hair. It's a very basic hair physics engine in Breath of the Wild's case, because the art style is so simple, so they don't need to do the Witcher thing where everything's individual strands, and holy shit, the Witcher's hair looks amazing to this day. They're proud of it too, because Geralt has a hair growing and beard growing system in that game. It's really superfluous, but neat.
Hold on. I'm looking up the Witcher's hair because, like, no, this is just all pictures of Henry Cavill. Hold on. I gotta look up the Witcher 3 hair in order to really get a good look at them.
Well, at various points, Geralt has long hair that hangs down his back, or a ponytail
You
with
can
it.
style your hair in The Witcher? What?
Yeah, that was actually one of the free DLC they gave out with the game close to launch, hairstyling. But at different points in the story, he also just has different hairstyles as well. Like in the beginning sequence, he has a ponytail that bounces around. Any game that gets a good ponytail going with physics and everything instantly looks 12 times better, because it's just one of those things that a lot of games don't have. Why are we spinning around? Are you trying to make me...
Because we're waiting for the game to load.
Look, are you trying to make me car sick? Are you trying to simulate digital car sickness? Thank you. Oh, no.
Gotta love when the game traps you in an elevator to load up the next part of the game.
Well, in this case, we're in a truck.
Well, I mean, if we were playing the game with full audio, we'd be hearing the truck and probably some dialogue in the background, too.
Ryan, check under the truck. There's a Mew under there.
Lava cookie.
Oh.
No, Ted, this is the beginning of Ruby and Sapphire's remake.
Dude, I was always really confused about why they, like, programmed a truck to have, like, 4 pixels in there. And, like, you never do anything. Also, the minor story detail that your character moves from Johto to Hoenn at the beginning of Ruby and Sapphire always pissed me off, because Gold and Silver gave me false expectations that we would be able to go back to old areas as a recurring Pokemon feature, and that never happened.
Well, you know, I don't exactly blame them for it in Gen 3's case, because they would have had to literally remake both regions.
Yeah, no, I don't. In hindsight and as an adult, it's perfectly reasonable, but you also have to remember that I played Pokemon Gold and Silver when I was 7, and it was a formative video game for me, like a formative piece of media. So, like, I basically, in the future, our cars have barcodes instead of license plate numbers. Okay.
Oh, that's actually like a really common trope in these kind of dystopian future things, is the use of barcodes as a tracking device, both on objects and on people.
I mean, the problem is that for a license plate, it doesn't make sense in terms of what a license plate is often used for, in that, like, If you're doing it for a computer, it doesn't really matter if it's a barcode or a number. But for a human, it's just like, oh, what was the license plate of that van? Line, big line, small line? It's like, you can't
Actually, indeed, it makes perfect sense for this kind of setting, because if the barcode is there, only the law enforcement agents with the specific barcode reading radar device would be able to tell whose car is who. So it would be absolutely useless for civilians. That is the kind of thing an authoritarian government would want.
Fuck, you're right, damn.
They would also have, like, security cameras and shit all over the place, so they'd be scanning everyone's cars, like, actively throughout the day.
I am terrified of the future where every car has a chip, and if you go over the speed limit, then the cops know where you are, and then you get pulled over. And they absolutely would do that. They wouldn't just, you know, cap the speed of the car at whatever the speed limit is for whatever road you were on, even though I'm sure that would be possible in this hypothetical future. No, they'd let you speed so they could pull you over and make you pay a fine for it.
No, they wouldn't do that, and here's why. Because all the rich people would be on the hook for it.
Well, this is one of those things where if there's a fine for an offense, that means the offense only matters to the poor. So the rich would be able to pay the fine because they have the money to do so, but the poor,
They still don't want to pay.
No, you don't want to be stuck with a speeding fine, because it puts a ding on your driver's license. And if you get too many dings on your driver's license in too short a time, your driver's license gets suspended, and then you have to take a defensive driving course to get it back, and then you can't get suspended too often, otherwise you'll get it permanently taken away. You see?
Yeah, but if you have the money...
The people who have the money are also the ones who make the decisions as to whether a product gets developed that might hurt their ability to speed with impunity. So they would just not do it. It's not the government that makes this shit, you know. It's companies contracted by the government. So... I'm getting deep into dystopian future tropes here, but this is the kind of stuff stories like this will often explore.
I should actually read 1984 one of these days.
I have never read 1984, and every time I think I should, some idiot mouths off about Orwell on social media and completely kills my interest in it.
Listen, in terms of, like, authors and, like... you know, author ownership and whatever. It's a complicated issue. The way that I've decided to think about it is to think not so much less about the actual author, especially when they're dead. Because like Orwell's passed away. Like he's not benefiting from us reading the book anymore. So even if he was an asshole, that's less of a thing. It's more about what the message of the product was. Example. Koichi Sugiyama is the composer for the Dragon Quest series. Man's passed away. Noted douchebag. You know, absolute noted douchebag for reasons you can look up on your own, and I don't want to get into here. Here's the thing. His work is mostly lyricless, orchestral music that sounds quite nice. So whatever beliefs or things that he was doing, you know, that's not really reflected in the music because it's just like cellos and brass and shit. You know, you can't really state in an orchestral piece for Dragon Quest that, oh, I thought that man believes some heinous shit. You could look it up on your own time.
Oh yeah,
if you really want to. But like, you can't really send that message through an orchestral soundtrack.
Well,
you know?
I think when it comes to someone who's alive,
then it's a different story for sure.
Yeah.
Let me give an example though. Like, who's its face? Lovecraft, Call of Cthulhu.
Oh yeah. Absolute racist dickbag.
It's like racist bastard. Okay. But also, when you look at the work through that lens, you realize that the supernatural horror he can no longer understand is like black people or Jewish people.
Jews. Yeah, I was gonna say Jews were a big one for him.
Well, the other thing about Lovecraft though is that Lovecraftian stuff has sort of transcended Lovecraft himself.
So you also have better options.
Yeah, a lot of the best Lovecraftian stuff is not stuff done by Lovecraft. It's kind of like you know, James Bond. That writer is a sexist asshole.
Yeah.
But like most of the
what,
James Bond stuff
the
isn't
guy
written
who
by
wrote
him
wrote
anymore.
the story about the spy who sleeps with a different woman every single story is a sexist. I'm shocked.
Well, it goes beyond that. Like, okay, what's her name? Pussy Galore, lesbian who gets cured of her lesbianism because it turns
Oh,
By
out
sleeping
she
with
was.
James Bond, yeah.
Yeah, she just needed James Bond to sleep with her, I guess.
Oh no.
She was a lesbian because of childhood trauma with her parents or some shit. I don't remember the details, but it's like, yeah, that's that whole
Yeah,
I
no, that's no, that's
I
bad.
think I think it was Pussy Galore. I'm not sure if I'm getting my wires crossed with the Bond girls. I might be. There are so goddamn many of them.
A lot of vagina was the Austin Powers baby,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. But anyway, to get back to Orwell, basically, when I eventually do read 1984, I'm gonna judge it based on like what message is the book actually sending versus what did Orwell believe in.
That is part of what I was going to say though, because like everyone on every political side of the fence brings up Orwell as shorthand for authoritarian overreach. And I'm just like, you guys do realize that Orwell also had a specific political stance within that book, right?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's arguing that. I don't think that even 1984 is arguing that that is the way that we want our government to run. You know, what the ninja cops doing backflips and shit? What? You have a gun, shoot us.
The thing is that, like, fully half of the people who bring up 1984 and Big Brother is watching and all of that shit are bringing up a book that opposes their political beliefs to support their political beliefs. It's magical. I hate it.
It's just, you also eventually learn that many people don't view the media they consume very critically.
Oh yeah, most of the people who bring up Orwell have never read Orwell.
Yeah, it's like this happens in video games a lot. I saw a couple months back a list of anti-woke video games, of which included Fallout and BioShock.
Oh
and I'm
God!
Just like, yeah, you did not actually pay attention to the games you were playing.
Fallout is hilarious because except for Fallout 4, which kind of like just gives up on having a theme entirely, every single Fallout game, well, except Fallout 4 and Fallout Shelter and probably Fallout 76, but I haven't really played it. But like the Fallout games are some of the most blatant satirical takes on a lot of the stuff that conservatives tend to... There's this guy called Nathan at the beginning of Fallout 3. I'm picking a Bethesda game because they're the ones who are comparatively less political. There's this guy named Nathan in the first town you go to in Fallout 3, Megaton. And he's basically an idiot who supports the Enclave, the bad guys of the game, because they claim to be the USA. Because they're on the radio all the time with President John Henry Eden and their patriotic American songs and everything. And he talks up the Enclave like nothing else. And when you try to convince him, funnily enough, when you try to convince him that the Second Amendment itself is proof that we should not unquestioningly support the government, he almost gets your logic. But then he's like, "Oh, you're just trying to confuse me with your fancy vault education." The punchline is that by the end of the game, he ends up in an Enclave dungeon, and you can't save him. He dies.
Yeah, honestly, that's a fairly realistic thing regarding people like that. And by people like that, I don't mean people with that political belief necessarily. More people who believe conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
They have done like studies and watched people who, like, flat earthers is an easy example. There are flat earth people who have done their own scientific experiments to try to prove that the earth is flat. And then when their own scientific experiments end up proving that the earth is round, they're like, well, I guess we got to try a different one. People who are so caught up into a belief that they don't have any like question that belief is true, they will Instead of changing their beliefs to the evidence, they will find evidence to match their beliefs. Oh, the girl that we liked is the bad guy the whole time? Oh man.
Yeah. My point regarding Fallout, though, is that that the Fallout series, even in Fallout 3, Bethesda's first entry, comes so fast and so hard with their explicit political leanings that bringing Fallout up as an anti-woke game is hilarious. It's just one of those things that, like, sort of disproves humanity's viability as a species.
I also like whenever they bring up BioShock as well, considering that BioShock is very blatantly an anti-libertarian like
Oh yeah,
game.
it definitely is, but I'll give them like I said this before actually the last time this came up. I'll cut them some slack on BioShock because it is at least less in your face about it, in the sense that it at least leaves you some room to form your own opinion. I think it's clear enough when you think critically about it what opinion that the authors want you to think, but they stand back and let you think about it yourself.
Ayn Rand still sucks though.
Yeah.